think the emotional hangover angle, the Notre Dame coming off of that game where they poured everything into that Ohio State game, and it's all I talked about all offseason. So I think you have the emotional hangover, traveling back from Ohio State on top of it. And then I think Marshall's one of those teams that they're not taking seriously. They're kind of starting to think ahead, like this is our bounce back game. This is the game we roll through. That's the vibe I've heard. And yeah, I just think Marshall's a lot better than people think. To me, it's a great example of what Lucas said earlier. We don't know enough. The bookmakers don't know enough either. This is more of like a 16.5 kind of game to me. So at 20.5, I think you're getting a ton of value. I think it's your best bet of the week.
How about that? The Sharpening the Edge from Brandon Justice. Welcome in week 3 as we get ready to go. STE week 3. There you see everybody on the screen. Brandon Justice, Lucas Riemink. I'm Dennis Fithian as we kick off week 3. Guys, it's great to see all of you, and we are ready to go for week 3. Is everybody feeling good?
Feeling great.
Feeling good. Ready to go.
Well, I have a way to dampen your spirits. Let's put up the record, Sharpening the Edge. And there it is overall. Read it and weep. The only thing I feel good about is that I did hit my lock last week, which was the Dolphins -3.5. I came through. You see Justice's how emphatic he was, how he was all over the Thundering Herd. And he didn't need a 20.5. He didn't need 16.5. They won it outright, Justice. How about that?
Well, Acuna's getting in the show early today, but it was great. Yeah, I had a strong feeling about Marshall. I like Marshall a lot. And I kind of wish I would have, like anybody else who takes an inflated underdog that ends up winning outright, we all think would have been nice if I took that money line, huh? But yeah, I guess that's the only quote unquote regret. But yeah, it's funny because Marshall's favored by 16.5 now, which we'll get to later. But it worked out great. And sometimes that's how it goes. Sometimes you go, what did I go in the first week? 2-6. I think we all went 2-6 in the first week. So sometimes that happens, and sometimes you call your shot like babe, and it works out good. But yeah, few and far, baby, few and far, week by week.
I'm like a cornerback. I got to have a short memory. When it comes down, yep. I'm on to the next play. I'm on to the next pick.
Ted Lasso's best advice. Got to be a goldfish.
Well, in the one part, if you're watching us for the first time, we do automatically pick against the spread, Michigan and Michigan State, and the Detroit Lions. So whether we like it or not, we're picking those games. We also pick a parlay, and we look at a prop. And as I was telling Lucas right before we were talking with you, Brandon, is that I tend to go for long odds there when it comes to both parlays, sure parlays. I'm always looking for them. So those are almost automatic L's. So I might even have to separate that out as we keep going here. If I keep just going for the long shot until I hit one, then I'll be telling everybody, hopefully you're hammering along. But I feel good about those today. Well, let's get right into it and start making some picks, and that will get us to those trio of games that we're going to select, as we always do, the Wolverine Spartans and Lions, and we will get with the Wolverines right out of the gate. 47.5, another gigantic number. Lucas, let's go with you on the selection. UConn coming in, this the 22 non-conference schedule that gets talked about a lot for Michigan. They got another one tomorrow, another easy one. Do you think they cover the 47.5?
Well, I talked about last week, where every time you see like a gigantic number, I think like it was like 50 or 50.5 last week. Just sort of on principle, I think those are just too high. Anytime you get close to 50, but I went against it last week, and I would do the same as well. But my actual pick for the game would be the Michigan, like the over 60.5. I'm thinking is my favorite play. I think part of this is I don't really know spread-wise how close Michigan wants to keep this game, because I do think it's sort of they can sort of pick their score type of game. I don't think UConn's going to be able to put up a whole bunch of stops, at least while the starters are in. And then I think UConn towards the end of the game, I think Michigan does want to play backups and stuff eventually to continue to develop that depth that they'll need for the rest of the regular season. So I could see UConn scoring like 10, 13 points at the most, probably something like that. And then I think Michigan, like I said, they can put up as many as they want to. I would expect them to play longer than basically the first half like they did last week, the starters. So I'm thinking they'll score 42, 45, something like that. So over 16.5 is my favorite play here on the Michigan game.
What about you, Justice?
I'm with. Oh, there we go.
Does my mic sound better?
Yes.
Okay. So this is what happened on Josh's show. If you guys are at Maize and Blue Review podcast fiends, my voice sounded terrible on Hail to the Podcast this week because the same error happened where mid-show my mic got switched. So if at some point I sound bad, just pipe in and let me know. So I'm on UConn here. I think the spread's just too inflated. If I'm trying to think of it like this, there's enough that we know about Michigan that it makes the betting perspective different for us because we know so much about the program from a layers standpoint, which we can't say the same about other schools that we break down, right? So from a layers perspective, Michigan certainly has the talent to cover this spread. But from that same perspective and what we know, I don't think they're going to risk anything in this game to cover that spread. I think we're going to see a very similar type of Hawaii trajectory, I guess you could say. Just snap share, just the whole in general. I just don't expect the starters to be out there long enough. UConn.
Your mic went right to mute right when you were making the money pick. Go ahead.
I'm telling you, there, somebody
out there has something against me with my microphone. I'm taking UConn because I don't think the starters are going to be out there long enough. I think UConn's the better of the three in Michigan's non-conference based on what they've done. I know one of their opponents was really, really bad. I think Colorado State probably has the more talented team. I just think UConn has a little bit more stability in its offensive line and in a couple other stages. So I'm going to go with UConn and the points, 47.5.
I am too. I think Michigan, they get into the second half, I think they'll be able to see the finish line, and it'll be like a preseason NFL game where you get into the fourth quarter and you're like, let's just make sure we got everybody ready to go for when the real game starts. And in this case, the real games are starting in the conference season next week. So I think you'll see just a heavy dose of ground attack in the second half. Sure, some guys can break it, but I think Michigan's just going to try to run out the clock in the second half. I'm thinking 50-9. So unfortunately, I won't take that over that Lucas likes a lot, but I will take the 47.5. Let's go right back to Lucas Riemink, who's now going to pick Michigan State. They've got a tough one. They go out to Seattle to take on Washington. The Huskies are favored by 3.5.
Yeah, I'm going to take MSU in the points in this one. Dennis and I were talking a little bit about this before the show. We both kind of like I don't want to spoil his pick. We both kind of like this side, I think, here with Michigan State. I don't know. I'm not sold on Washington. I know Penix and the new head coach there, like it looks good on the surface. I just don't know if they've really played anybody with a pulse yet. I think Michigan State's solid. I don't really know quite how good they are. I'm thinking like 8-4-ish is kind of what I project Michigan State to be at this stage. But I think Washington is really not as good as people think it is. I don't really understand why they're the favorite in this game. I think part of it is the health of the Michigan State wide receivers. And then Peyton Thorne hasn't looked great so far in the early going into 2 weeks, though. But I think this is sort of a get-right game, I guess. And I think Michigan State goes on the road. I think they're going to win, but I'll take the points here for sure.
You'll take the points. Justice, are you following the leader?
So, you guys ever see that Brian Windhorst meme where he puts his fingers in the air and he says, why did they do that? So, September 11th, last week, this line was at MSU minus 3.5 from September 7th until the 11th when it flipped from that 3.5 mark to +1. It went back to a pick 'em, and then it went up to a 2.5, and then it went back to +1. At 5:27 p.m. on September 11th, that line went back to 3.5, favoring Michigan State. So it flipped from +2.5 to -3.5, just to make sense of this visually. And then that was at 3:52 p.m. And by 5:27, that 3.5 line favoring Michigan State had flipped 3.5 back to Washington. Why did that happen? I don't know why. And I don't want to sit here and figure out why. I'm going to take Washington -3.5. There's something that we don't know. Last year, everybody thought it was absolutely bonkers that Ohio State was getting 19.5 points against Michigan State. I know that's like way more inflated than this one, but it's just an example of when, and not to mention there's a lot of sharp on Washington, which is why it moved. But regardless, when things like this occur that don't make a whole lot of sense, it's because there's something we don't know. So I'm going to go with Washington, 3.5 at home against Michigan State, who people are, it's one of those things where it's so obvious that it's too obvious for me. So I'll go play contrarian and see what happens. Not with a whole lot of backing, but sometimes that's okay in instances like this, in my opinion. So I'm taking Washington.
I was sent a series of computer models by a state friend of mine, and all of them predict Michigan State coming out not only inside of that 3.5, but winning it outright. I like State on the money line in this pick. Upset number 1, Michigan State outright. All right, that gets us to the Lions. And I got to tell you guys, I thought you guys were a bunch of suckers and homers picking the Lions last week. I thought, your Justice over there talking about the Hard Knocks record. And
5-0, baby.
And then, they're getting killed. And I was kind of laughing. I was like, those guys are suckers, man. Just picking the Lions. Like a lot of other people. I don't mean to, slam you or anything else. But in the end, here come the Lions. That was one of the great covers of all time by you guys. Justice, why don't you lead us off again? What's this? Lions favored by 1 against the Commanders.
Yeah, I like the Lions a lot again this week for different reasons. First off, the against the spread Hard Knocks stat now moves to 5-0 in openers, which is hilarious. So you start to wonder, the Cardinals are getting midseason Hard Knocks. Do I go bet the Cardinals in week 6 or 7, whenever that occurs? There might be a chance. But yeah, the Lions are getting 75% of the money, only 59% of the tickets, and the sharp signals are on them as well. So that just kind of signals that money's agreeing with it. And typically when the money agrees with it, that means it is the smart money. There's another bet that we're going to talk about later in the show, or I'm going to talk about later in the show, where that doesn't occur. It's similar in that the money percentages are ahead of the bet percentages, but the sharps are on the opposite side, meaning that the money is actually coming from the public. So just an interesting way to look at it. But yeah, the sharps and the smart money are both on the Lions. I think 1.5 is, I love 1.5 at home too. The Commanders are good. And I think that this total, I shouldn't say good, they're better than people think they are. I think offensively, Carson Wentz is just like a volatile hellfire. And I'm super okay betting against him. And then conversely, I don't see, like, Washington's going to stretch out the field a lot for sure, I think, on this Lions pass D. But I think the Lions are going to have a much, much, much easier time getting after not just the passer for Washington, but for every team after this. They just faced what I believe is one of the 3 best teams in the NFL, like from a roster perspective, and kept up with them step for step. So I think without having to worry about a running option and without having to worry about an offensive line built like Philly's, Detroit will have a lot of success. Not to mention they're at home, and the small line at 1.5, I'm all in for it. Not to mention we're getting some help from some money too. So I'll take the Lions -1.5.
All right. The selection now moves over to Lucas Riemink.
Yeah, I'm with Brendan as well. I like the Lions to cover again. For a lot of the same reasons he talked about. I think Carson Wentz is a volatile quarterback, and like you mentioned, I think he'll probably turn the ball over at least once, maybe multiple times. And I think Lions will have a lot of success on the ground. That's sort of why I like the Lions, at least for the first couple weeks. I don't know if Vegas is properly rating the strength of their run game. From what I've seen, it's kind of based on the run game last year when they're missing multiple stars on the offensive line is kind of the power rating numbers that I've seen. But I like the Lions running game as long as the offensive line remains healthy. And I don't know that's going to stick all year, but at least for the first couple weeks of the season, I'm going to take the Lions until Vegas adjusts.
I'm pretty impressed with Amon-Ra St. Brown. And for me, I've got the selection on the screen. I've got the Lions 30, Commanders 24. So I'll easily lay that 1 where it's at right now. I don't care if it's 1.5, 2.5. I'll lay that. I like the Lions. I'm with you guys. I'm joining you. No more.
That is the over too. Now that's another. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm looking at the wrong one. I was looking at the wrong game. Yeah, so that's the over still.
That would
47
be
and a
the
half.
over. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think the over is a bad play either, Dennis. I don't know about you. I don't think that's a bad play either. I just like the side here. I think we all agree with the side, but I don't think the total's a bad play either.
I'm in.
The only thing that worries me is the offensive line situation for the Lions. Losing the starting guard, having to replace him. Swift's been out, so there's a chance Swift doesn't play. But I like what we saw from Jamal Williams in week 1. I think he can carry the load. And the Lions losing all offensive linemen, sure, but I mean, they're otherwise really strong in that position group. So I think that they'll take care of themselves there.
Well, if Ragnar
did say he was going to play.
What's that?
Oh, he did? All right, good.
Yeah, Swift said he was going to play yesterday. So
or if Ragnar doesn't, I'm out on him. So that would be
true.
My
He's
opinion.
by far.
All right, that gets us to those 3 games. Let's get to this is the nice selections. These ones coming up. We picked 3 games, our favorite games, whether it's college or pro. They can be mixed. And these are the ones that you want to follow. Let's start out with Brandon Justice, if he's ready to go with his trio of selections here. I know his motto, love Tennessee. And I thought, again, I was laughing at you on Saturday, but you get the last laugh both Saturday and Sunday on me. What are you smiling about this week?
Well, first off, the Volunteers made me sweat. That's for sure. That did not come as easy as I thought it would. I thought they were honestly going to roll. To keep it a buck with you, but they did not. So we'll start with where are we at here? BYU. They're at Oregon, and it's a 3:30 game, so not a night game. I just feel like the environment, I'm not buying into this. Is basically a pick 'em at 3.5, and I'm not buying into the home field advantage thing with Oregon. I know that they have a raucous stadium, but the line opened at 6.5. It's moved to 3.5, and it really hasn't drawn back a whole lot. It's really stayed stagnant on BYU. The signals are on BYU. I like BYU a lot this year. They have the most returning production in the country, and it was by a pretty big amount. And I think I opened the year betting against them. I think I not to lose, but I had a team covering against them, and they ended up not covering. So I just like BYU a lot this year. I think BYU is going to cover a ton this year. They have a really experienced team. They have a talented team. They have a good team, a team that's played together for the past 3 seasons. And I just think those things work out better than Oregon, who I think might not end up being that good this year. First-year head coach didn't look great in the first 2 weeks, in my opinion. And I just think that they're getting overrated by Vegas right now. And again, I think this is a pick 'em. At 3.5, this is pretty much a pick 'em. It's just the home field advantage is giving them that 3.5. Usually it's 2.5, but at 3.5, that's pretty much what you're getting in the pick 'em. So I will take BYU. I think they're going to cover. I think the signals agree, and I think we've got some positive edges there enough to want it. Now, I was thinking about making my best bet the Thundering Herd again. I'm not. I'm going to spice it up. I think that's a little bit of a cheat code. I'm going to take Marshall 16.5, which is funny because last week we were taking them 20 points the other way. This week we're going to take 16.5. They're on the road again at Bowling Green. And if Marshall can walk into South Bend and dominate, I think they can walk into Bowling Green and dominate. And at 16.5, you're getting a 2-0 Marshall team. It's going to win the MAC, in my opinion. And they're going to play against an 0-2 Bowling Green team. They're not good, at all. Signals are there. A little bit of the money's on Bowling Green, but I think the sharps and the smarts are on Marshall with me here. And I tell you what, I'm happy that we got ahead of the game in the Marshall train, but you're going to see these lines really inflate for Marshall by next week, I think. I think this might be our last Marshall pick for a couple of weeks, but I'm in on Marshall again for the second week. And then my next pick and my final college football pick of the 3, I've got so many up here that I could choose from, and I didn't know which one I wanted to pick, but here we go. I'm going to take Oklahoma and Nebraska over 64.5. Nebraska's defense already not good. Now they have what they've dealt with over the last week. Their offense, I still think, has something to it, and I don't think Oklahoma's defense is this world beater, even though they're under Venables and a defensive-minded coach and all that. I 100% believe in that, but we've got some smart money coming in on the points here, and I think it just kind of sets up perfectly for one of those real high-scoring affairs. This is what Oklahoma's kind of been known to do over the last few years. I know they have a new head coach, but the system still feels very similar. And then Nebraska, they're at home coming off of I believe this game's at Nebraska, right? I don't think I have that wrong.
Yes,
But coming off the disaster that Scott Frost was, and this being the week after, it's just one of those games where I feel like in college football, your inspiration edge comes in offense, not in defense. Like you're going to see more points coming off of that. And then not to mention the roster makeup for Nebraska is far more offensive than it is defensive. So those are my 3 college football picks. Oklahoma, Nebraska over 64.5, BYU's points plus 3.5, and Marshall minus 16.5.
Lucas, let's hear your trio of selections.
Sure. First, I want to talk about the BYU one a little bit. Have you seen, Brandon? I don't know if you pay attention to injuries that closely, but BYU's best 2 receivers haven't played so far this year, and there's a chance at least one of them goes this week. Have you seen anything about that?
Yes. Thank you for bringing that up too, because that is another hugely important thing. I love BYU this year. I think they're going to be super good. I thought that since I saw the returning production grade from SP Plus. Computers like them a lot for the returning production. So yeah, no, great point. I didn't even see that or realize that.
So that's because I was thinking about picking that game, and I was sort of looking into it, and it sounds like one of them's going to go, maybe not the other one, but yeah, I would lean BYU there as well, just to agree. But I didn't pick it. With my 3 college football picks, I'm going to go, let's see, where should I start? I'll start in USC. USC catching 11 points, Fresno State. I don't know. It's really just comes down to, like, I get Fresno's going to be motivated to play USC in this game. I think that happens with a lot of West Coast schools. Like, if you don't get offered by USC, you end up at a place like Fresno. I think you're going to be juiced up to play the USC when you do. I just think USC's offense is too good to be within. I mean, I'd take it up to like 13.5, and if you're getting it at 11 here, that's good value for me. So I like USC minus 11. I think Jordan Addison has a big day. Caleb Williams has a big day, and the USC defense has been really good at forcing turnovers so far this year. So I like that as well. And then I'll go with an under. I'm going under 54.5, Georgia and South Carolina. I think, to me, this is kind of a question of how much does South Carolina score and how much does Georgia want to score. I think SEC opener for both teams here, not both teams, sorry, but for Georgia, I think they're going to take their foot off the gas towards the end of the game, at least on offense. I think they'll come out to a big lead in the first half and kind of slow it down in the second half, just run the ball and get out of there with a win. And I don't think South Carolina's offense, like, both line of scrimmage for South Carolina really scare me, especially against the Georgia team. I don't really see them having much balance on offense because of that offensive line against Georgia's defense. I just don't see that being a good matchup for them. I don't see them putting up a whole lot of points. I'm thinking like 38-10 is kind of what I'm projecting the score here. So I got a lot of value there on the under. And then I'm going to go another SEC team. I'm going to take Vanderbilt plus 2.5 against Northern Illinois. Partly just like SEC road dog against the MAC team. I don't know. It seems weird to me. I know it's Vanderbilt, but I think their roster is better than Vegas is giving them credit for. I've sort of been on Vanderbilt. I know I bet on them at least once in the first 2 weeks, personally, but I didn't pick them for the podcast. But I like Vanderbilt this year. I think they can go Northern Illinois and get the win outright. So I'll take the plus 2.5 there. I like that value. What do you got, Dennis?
Well, I am going to put my selections up on the screen for you guys. Wyoming is home against Air Force. I think Craig Boyle will have his team stingy enough on defense to be able to hold down that Air Force running attack. Plus, I'm getting 16.5. I'm tempted to take that on a money line. That would be a nice one, but I'll take that 16.5. Penn State's going on the road, and they beat up Auburn last year. I know it's going to be an orange out. I know they're having a tough time getting hotel accommodations and all those things. But I think Penn State, Auburn doesn't know who they're playing at quarterback. They're going to play 2 guys. That's a disaster waiting to happen. I like the Nittany Lions in that game. I think it'll be a low-scoring game, but I like Penn State. And then I think it's going to be a high-scoring game when Purdue goes into Syracuse. I like Purdue outright 38-35, but I'll take the 1.5. Probably if I'm betting it, I'll just go with the money line. But there you go. Wyoming plus 16.5, Penn State minus 3, and Purdue plus 1.5. So now we get to our parlays or props. And let's just go right back to Lucas because it looks like Brandon's ready to spring a huge one. Whether you got give you a prop and a parlay chance here. Go ahead.
Sure. So I'll start with the parlay. I like this. I got 3 picks here. They're all college again.
Oh, 3.
I like, yep, under. I got 2 unders and a team. So I'll go under 41, Notre Dame and Cal. I don't think highly of either offense. I think both defenses are good. I don't like either offense. So to me, it just seems like a classic, like 21-14 game, like something like that. So I like the under there. I'm going to take another under. Iowa and Nevada, another team. I don't like either offense. So I'll go under 39.5 there. The only thing that scares me a little bit there is like Iowa having like a pick 6 or something. Just could totally screw that up. But I still like it enough. 39.5. I'll take another under there. And then Mississippi State catching 2.5 points going on the road to LSU. I think Mississippi State's a better team. I'm not sure Vegas has really caught on to how good I think Mississippi State is. I think they're going to win by at least 3 points here. So that's really all I need. I think they'll win by as many as a touchdown. But Mississippi State 2.5 there. So you add those up and it comes out to like plus 595 for my parlay there. So that's what I'm going to roll with.
Well, I like you adding on games too. That's how you get better in the standings, being able to sweep those props. And let's now go up to Justice, who has been known to add on as well.
I'll start with my prop. I got Russell Wilson over 8.5 rushing yards. Matt Ryan had 12 yards rushing last week against Houston's defense. Russ is known to run more than Matt Ryan, I would say. And at 8.5,
that's it. 8.5.
8.5, yeah. So at 8.5, I think you're getting pretty good odds, I would say.
I like it.
So yeah, 8.5 rushing for Russ, which scares me because it's low, and usually when it's that low, it's frightening. And then for my parlay, I had an NFL one and an NCAA one. My NFL parlay is Texans money line plus 390. They're playing against Denver, as we just mentioned. I just think you're getting like a ridiculous amount of value on Houston at plus 390. I mean, they just took the Colts 20-20 all the way through for 5 quarters, and I think the Colts are a better defense than Denver, in my opinion. I just think they have better pieces from the front to the back. I still think Denver's defense is super good, but I think the Colts have like one of the best in the league. And then you can parlay that with San Francisco money line. I think they're going to absolutely like pummel Seattle. I think they might win by 21 plus. So I'm on those two. That gets you out to right around like plus 500-ish, plus 400-ish, because you're getting Houston at plus 390. San Francisco's at minus 400. But parlaying those odds helps you out a bit. So that's my NFL one. And the NCAA, I am also on Cal and Notre Dame under 41. Those two offenses are inept, and Notre Dame's defense is still pretty good in my opinion. So I think you won't see a lot of points there. Second leg is SMU plus 3. I just think that they're going to be a team that's potentially going to pull an upset this week against Maryland. I think this is Maryland's first test. Maryland's defense is super duper bad. And at 3, I think you're kind of right where you need to be because you're going to beat out 2.5. You're going to lose on 3.5. But I think 3 is a good spot to be. So SMU plus 3. And then my last leg of it, where's it at? I've got all these games up here, boys, and I've got nothing to show for it because I can't figure out which game was my last leg of my third one. Oh, well, it's my best bet too. So I guess we can segue into the best bet because this is my last leg and my best bet. Fresno State and USC over 74.5. I know that sounds insane because 74.5 is a ton of points, but like that's pretty much exactly what you're going to see on Saturday, in my opinion. These are two offenses that are just going to hoist it up to no end, and both in two defenses that are going to let them do it too. So I think Fresno State actually challenges USC this week too, and I think that helps. I think there's overtime potential in a game like this too, and I think that helps. There's just too many things that help on top of the fact that there's sharp money on it here, and there's been some extreme movement. I think it was at it had to have been, I think it's below 70 when it opened or right at 70, and it's already almost up to 75. So that's my parlay. SMU plus 3. I told you I had a lot of bets on here. I'm out here reading the wrong acronym. SMU plus 3. Fresno and USC over 74.5, and Cal Notre Dame under 41. And then my best bet is Fresno State USC over 74.5. And then my NFL, Houston, San Francisco, and my prop, Russ over 8.5 rushing yards. So write all that down.
Empty in the clip there, man.
Over 74.5. Defense optional for my prop. I'm going to stay right in Ann Arbor. I don't think J.J. McCarthy is going to be using his wheels too much this week. I think they want him to work on the passing game, and I think he might get close to this number before the half and then come out and hit a big one in the third quarter. So I'm going to go over 225 yards passing for J.J. McCarthy for my prop. For the parlay, I'm going with a Big Ten buffet special. I've got Purdue on the money line over Syracuse. I'll take Nebraska in 11 points. They got to do something this year. They have the tendency to keep things close. I know they have a new coach, but they do kind of keep it close. I'll take those 11 points. I like Penn State on the road against Auburn, and I like Michigan State outright up in Seattle. So there it is. Purdue, Nebraska, Penn State, and Michigan State plus 1657. Just remember where you heard it, because I feel good about hitting the parlay. We know the best bet is over that 74.5 USC Fresno for justice. So we will come back and get the best bet from Lucas Riemink.
Yeah, so this one's a little bit of a sicko mode play here. But I'm going to go Ohio State, the first half total, minus 20.5 against Toledo.
I like that.
This is like the first game where, first half. And it's a kind of a look ahead spot for Ohio State because they got Wisconsin coming into Columbus next week. So I think the second half, like, I don't want to take the total game spread because I think the second half they'll just kind of run the ball, eat clock, and not show a ton. But I think in the first half they're going to jump out to a big lead. I think it's kind of like a tune-up game for this Wisconsin game that they got coming up. It sounds like Jackson Smith and Jigba is going to play. He's healthy. Julian Fleming might also play. So I think Ryan Day is going to want to see that passing attack get on track and get where they want it to be as they look to enter Big Ten play next week. So yeah, minus 20.5 first half, Ohio State.
Our recruiting editor from Mays Blue Review has chimed in on a selection that he wants to get out there. And you want to make a comment?
59.5.
Zach Libby is taking 59.5 with Pine Bluff. I'm not familiar with their football program, but they'll be taking on Oklahoma State.
I just want to point out my prop hit last week, too. I forgot to mention that. You know, I got to take my flowers. Plus 290, Chris Olave, anytime touchdown.
Nice job.
Put that in there. Yeah, my less sexy this week with over 8.5 rushing yards, but it'll be fun to watch it happen. You know what's crazy is that when you take an over in rushing yards against quarterbacks, their sacks, I think, count against the rushing yards. I don't know.
Not in college. In the NFL, it counts against passing yards. In college, it counts against rushing yards.
This is why you're on the show. This is why you're on the show, Lucas. So Russell Wilson over 8.5. That should be the best bet of all time. Theoretically, on paper, but Vegas obviously knows something we don't. I'm going to lose, but just pointing that out. Must start calling myself the prop king if this one hits too. So I hate props, by the way. Like in my history of betting on sports, I think I'm like 1 in 100 in props. So
props are hard.
We'll see. I had a Eckler prop last night that went well. I was rushing and receiving over 93.5. Sweat that one out, but it worked. So we're good.
Nothing worked for me last night. Here's the bet of the week.
So subtle.
For me, I did hit going against the Patriots last week against the Dolphins. This time the Steelers, they're at home. I like their passing attack. And
you hate the Pats.
I think the Pats are I think they are a joke this year. Matt Patricia's their offensive coordinator. Come on. I like the Steelers. I'd take it on the money line, but if they're giving me 2 points, I'd gladly take it. I'm taking the Steelers +2 for my best bet of the week versus the Patriots. There it is. That's all I got. All right, guys. Any final thoughts?
It's going to be another great week because football is on every day from Thursday until Tuesday, and that's literally the best reality to live in. On top of that, you can sharpen the edge over the next few days as well, and I can knock over everything on my desk when I tell you to do things. So,
I'll second that. Lucas, enjoy the games tomorrow. Always fun working with you. Brandon, we'll see you. Enjoy the game. Safe travels and everything else. And good luck to everyone.
Oh, come tailgate with us tomorrow if you're at the Michigan game. East Hoover. I think that's the street. So
Yeah.
sounds good. Have a good weekend.
All right. See you everybody later. Good luck again.